What's going on, YouTube? It's your girl Nickelodeon, and I'm back with a review. I'm doing a review with the movie series You that comes on Lifetime, and I've been watching it every Sunday. I believe it comes on around 8-ish, 9-ish every Sunday, and it is so juicy. I'm totally addicted, and you can also get it on the app, the Lifetime app, and catch up with all of the episodes that's going on now. I believe they're up to 10 episodes now. This is the first series that's out right now, and it's very good. So the main character in the story is a male named Joe. There's a female character in the story named Beck. There's another male character in the story named Benji, and there's a little boy in the story. So there's a lot of different interesting characters in the story. So briefly, Joe is a librarian. I believe that he was an intern, and then eventually I think the owner of the library passed away and passed the store ownership down to Joe, and he taught everything that he knew on to Joe. So Joe is now the owner of the bookstore. But they really didn't get into detail of the owner's passing and how Joe became like the sole owner and the manager of the bookstore. But I think that's going to be later revealed in another episode of what happened with the owner of the bookstore. And then Joe meets Beck, which is a female. Beck comes in the store, and Joe is immediately attracted to Beck, and he is helping her out, and, I believe he's picking up signals that he thinks is there, like he's checking her out, and he's like, I guess he's like wishing that she feels the same way, and he's like, like she didn't have cash to pay for a book, so she paid for her credit card, and he's like, like she wants me to know her name, Excuse me. And I don't believe like the signs that he's picking up on was actually her flirting, but it could have been. It could have been. But she is very flirtatious person. She was smiling at him a lot, and she was being very friendly to him. She did ask what his name was, and they shook hands. And then Joe became obsessed with her from that moment that she left the store. He liked her smile, and he liked everything about her. From that moment on, he was hooked. So I think that he had found her name out, of course, because she paid with a credit card. So, and keep in mind when you see the movie come on, it'll say you, but then it has the blood come across the word you. So it kind of lets you know that it's going to be kind of like a horror, or maybe like a murder with a twist or something like that. So it's kind of like a love story, but with a horror twist to it, So, people keep that in mind when you're going to pay for things, your credit card has your name on it, so you gotta be mindful of those weirdos, you know. Especially like if you're going to a small business like a bookstore, or, like a little flea market type of setup. If it's like a little tiny small business, I would definitely try to pay cash. watching this show, I'm like, oh my gosh, it really sends out some red flags. So he had Beck's whole name. It was Guinevere. I can't remember her last name. But as soon as he got off work, he went home and went to the computer, and he's Googling her name. He found her on, I believe, the Facebook or the Instagram. I think it was Instagram. And he found her. He was looking through her profiles. He's checking out her friends. and I think he had Googled her address. At that point, once he had her address, it was a wrap. He was outside her apartment. He was outside her apartment, and this is what trips me out. He was outside of her apartment, and her windows is like I believe they live in like some old she's like, I believe it's like downtown New York or something like that, but the homes are like historic, so they're like historic, like very very large windows, and for some reason her windows are not like heavily covered with the curtains or the blinds or anything like that. So you can just kind of like stand on the street and see right in there. You know, in one episode, homegirl was taking a shower and she comes out and he's standing right there, right across the street, and he can see her. Mm. Like this girl, like either she's not aware that people can see right inside her apartment, or either she doesn't care. I'm not sure about this girl. Now Beck also raises some eyebrows with her behavior. But you know, you'll find that out once you start watching a couple of the episodes and see how she is. But you know, he started hanging outside of her apartment, and then later on, um he was hanging out with well, he she didn't know he was there, but she was out with some friends of hers. They were at a bar setting. You know, she has about, I believe there's like 3 or 4 friends. One of the friends' name is Peach, and Peach is like the rich friend. You know, she's rich, but she's kind of needy, and needy as far as um needing attention, needing a shoulder to lean on. You know, she uses Beck as the crutch. You know, Beck is that friend that she picks up the phone and calls, and Beck is right there at her calling, at her begging need. You know, so Peach is the needy rich girl. Then she has one of her other friends. I can't remember their name, all of their names exactly right now, but the one of the friends is very popular on the social media, you know, and she's just popular in general. She knows where all the happenings is and stuff like that. So they all have different little characteristics about them. And so he was kind of like spying on them and kind of picking her friends apart. And he's like, you know, narrating the story. So the story is kind of being narrated through Joe. So you kind of hear him talking, but he's not actually talking. He's narrating the story. So he's narrating the whole scene. You know, he's like, like Beck, like you have some interesting friends, you know. And why do you hang out with this crowd again? Like, you know, like Peach is so needy, and this girl, she cannot stop, you know, going on and on about her social media, and it's really funny how he's like kind of like snapping on her friends, you know. But then, um, she was actually at some kind of like poem reading bar type of thing. So it was her chance to stand up and read one of the poems that she wrote. Also, what I didn't mention was that Beck is a student and Beck is a writer. So I believe that's what she's going to school for writing. and she did a poem. So she stood up. It's kind of like karaoke night at the bar, but they're doing poems. Something that I never did, but it sounds like it would be fun or interesting. So, she totally bombed it. I don't know if she was nervous from the crowd, or was the poem bad, or was she just too drunk or something, but she totally bombed the poem. I think the crowd just kind of like gave her a clap for pity. And then she got out of there. She was very drunk. Then later on, Joe finds her. Joe's at the subway. I believe he was waiting on the train. He was getting ready to go home. And then he sees, lo and behold, Beck stumbling down the subway, drunk, alone. And she had her cell phone in her hand, and she's so busy texting that she ended up dropping her phone onto the train tracks of the subway. She tries to reach out to grab her phone, slips and falls. Boom, she's on the train tracks of the subway. I think she was very drunk, and I don't think she even realized that she was seconds away from death. And the next thing you know, she just vomited all over Joe. So, Joe was a good trooper about it. Of course, he's going to be a good trooper about it, because the very girl he's in love with and was stalking is now right there with him. So, he took it like a pro, cleaned himself up, and they shared a cab, and he helped her get home and everything like that. So, the cab pulls up in front of her apartment, and she's like, "Oh my God, Joe, I owe you my life." And then she's like, "Oh my God, my phone." She still didn't have her phone. So, I think this is her boyfriend or somebody that she was messing around with. The guy named Benji comes out, and he's like, "Oh my God, Beck, there you are. I was just here looking for you." So he goes and he tries to get her out the cab, and then here's Joe. He's like narrating the story in his head, and he's like, "Beck, who's this guy? I must have missed something." And then once Beck, he kind of waved bye to Beck and her boyfriend. And then once Beck was out of the cab and out of the picture, he pulled what was Beck's phone out of his pocket. This boy is good. This boy is slick. So he managed to get her phone, and it was unlocked. So there he is, had full access of her entire life right there in his hand. So he has her phone, so he could easily just, scroll through her phone and find out who this guy Benji is. So there he is, scrolling through her phone, and he finds out that Benji is this. I think he's rich also, and he's trying to push some kind of soda pop or something like that, and so he's trying to start a business. So he finds out who Benji is. He doesn't really like him. Benji seems to be some kind of spoiled rich brat, like he was born into money. He sees videos of Benji partying a lot, and I think it was one particular video where Benji was partying with some friends, and one of the friends ended up getting killed or something, or got alcohol poisoning, and the friends just kind of stood around and just recorded and laughed. I guess they were too drunk to even realize that the person was dead. But if you see the video, you will see that the person definitely was unconscious while they kept on recording and was around the guy laughing and stuff. So, that sent some red flags up about Benji's character. So that was, it was more than just drinking. It was a lot of drugs going on, and and other things too. Pardon me, guys. I am a little bit sick, and I'm sorry for not having a video in a while, but I have been binging. Speaking of binging, I've been binging on this series that's going on this You series, and it, like I said, it's so juicy and there's so much to talk about. And then I believe we have a couple of other good shows coming out. We got Married at First Sight, Happily Ever After. We got Shanice and Jeffy. That's another show that comes on Lifetime. And I don't know if you guys have watched any of my other Married at First Sight videos. I don't know. I don't know if you guys like that at all or not. But I watched Married at First Sight for like maybe the first 3 seasons, and I actually liked it. But this is a new show called Married at Sight Happily Ever After. So they follow couples, after they leave that show, after they've already been married. But the You series is still going on. I just told you about probably like the first 3 episodes. But let me tell you this, it's so much more going on with that story. That story is so good. That story is so good. So yeah. But yeah, back to You. So he found out who Benji was. He came up with the idea of what Benji's character was about, and he figured out that he has to get Benji out of the way because he wants Beck all to himself. So, he's going to come up with some diabolical plan to get Benji out of the way so that he can have Beck. And this is some fatal attraction. This is definitely some fatal attraction. And, when I look at Joe, he's scrawny, little skinny little white guy, a little geekish looking. You probably would be somebody that you kind of would overlook or something like that. Not anybody that really stands out, but there is something about him that is very sexy. I like his intellect, and I definitely like his the way he treats women. Now, I can't say about what's going to happen later, but right now I can say